a video on a North African, Middle Eastern, Mediterranean dish called Shakshuka. I pronounced that wrong, I know I have, but it's basically a tomato and pepper chickpea stew, which you then crack some eggs into and cook some eggs. Um, Fundamentally, but obviously recipes change throughout wherever people are and how they cook it and what they have to at hand. So it's fundamentally going to be that, but well, the idea is going to be that, but it's not actually going to be exactly that because I haven't got any peppers, and I've certainly in Muslim countries they're not going to use pork products, so we're going to change a few things. And I am going to use, I made some chorizo a few months ago, and it's just getting to the stage where it needs using up. So it's starting to get a nice bit of mold on it, but it doesn't really want to be any moldier than that. So I need to use that up. I'm using chickpeas. I used dried chickpeas, which I've soaked and cooked. Go on the idea that 300 grams of dried chickpeas or dried beans will give you about 750 grams worth of cooked beans. I'm going to use 2 tins of tomatoes, but if I wasn't using 2 tins of tomatoes, I'd use so they're 400 grams. So instead of using 800 grams of tomatoes, I'd use 500 grams of passata because I always find it a little bit stronger than tomatoes. I haven't got any peppers, so we're going to make a tomato sauce first with some onion and some garlic, and then we're going to leave some of the onion sliced so it's a different kind of size and kind of texture. I'm going to use the chorizo, otherwise I would have used some of the dry cured bacon that I've got in the fridge, but that's because that's what I've got. But failing that, what I'd use is I'd use the cooking bacon from the supermarket, which is pretty cheap, so that's how I'm going to cost it. Don't have to use chickpeas. If I didn't have chickpeas, I would have used some cannellini beans. It's all pretty much of a muchness, if I'm honest. However, when you're cooking the beans, follow the instructions and save the cooking liquid. We'll either put that in the dish, or we'll save it for something else. You can actually make vegan mayonnaise out of that, and also it's got quite a lot of flavour in it. So if you're making a soup, you can use that as a base for the soup, and then kind of it'll add a little bit of more flavour to it than you would if you just add water. So make the tomato sauce. We'll fry off the chorizo or the bacon, whatever meat you're using, and then we'll use the oil. We'll take that out. We'll use that oil to cook the onions, the bigger cut onions to start off with, and then we'll add the finer cut. We'll take those out. We'll add the finer cut onions and the garlic. Cook that down a little bit. Add the tomatoes. Make a sauce, and then we'll add the rest of the ingredients and kind of do that. So I'll do some veg prep. I'll faff around, and we'll get to the stage where it's a little bit more interesting rather than just looking at products and things frying on the stove. So we'll get to that stage. I think that's all I had to add for the moment. Yes, yeah. Eggs. You can get eggs really cheaply, as long as you're not bothered where they come from. So as you can buy eggs in the supermarket for about 9p each, will cost it at that, so it'll kind of keep the costs. So it's one of those dishes where you can make things as cheaply or as expensively as possible. So you could use really cheap bacon, you could use really expensive chorizo. At the other end of the spectrum, you could add cheap eggs, you could have organic free-range eggs from rare breed chickens and all that kind of stuff. You can make it as cheaply or as expensively as you like. I'm going to cost it so it's cheap, and we'll show how much we can feed people with. But it's nice as a lunch, nice as an evening meal. It's also nice as breakfast as well. And the first time I had it was in Morocco, years and years and years ago, and it was delicious. But anyway, that's it. We'll do some chopping and some cooking, and then we'll come back when it's a little bit more fun. I have already fried off the chorizo, or bacon if you're using bacon, or any kind of meat, whatever you're using. What I found with the chorizo is that some of the fat wants to come out of it, and that's what I use to cook the onions. So fry the chorizo off first. It becomes a little bit crispy. Some of the fat comes out of it. Then I threw in the larger cut onions, which was like half the amount of onions was the larger cut ones. Fried those off until they were soft, and then I've taken those out of the pan, and I'm sorting off the finer cut onions and the garlic, and that's what we're going to make the sauce out of. So there, The onions are cooked enough now that we can add the tomatoes, and what we're going to do is we're going to cook that down for a little bit, concentrate the flavours, and then we'll give it puree, and then we'll add the other ingredients back in. So 2 tins of tomatoes, like that. In fact, what I would do if I was, as I don't like wasting things. So if I was making a simple tomato sauce like this, and I was later in the week I was going to make some kind of other tomato-based dish, what I would do is I'd make double the quantities. So I was just making the tomato sauce once rather than again later in the week, if that can make sense. Always just rinse out the tins with a bit of water, because there's a tiny bit amount of tomato in there, and we're going to add some water which is going to evaporate off, so just don't like wasting any of it. Even pour it over the lid as well for that bit of tomato that's on there. So one of the tins of tomatoes was whole tomatoes, the other tin was chopped, which is fine. It's going to cook down. I'm going to puree it anyway. Don't need to puree it, it's just that I want to do for the sauce. So bring that up to temperature and we'll let it cook without a lid, and then we'll evaporate some of that water off. It'll concentrate the flavours, and then we can add in the chickpeas and the chorizo and the onion, and then we'll give all that a cook for a little while, let all the flavours kind of mingle together, just for like maybe 15-20 minutes, and then we'll crack the eggs in, and then we'll do that. So next stage will be when the tomato sauce is a little bit cooked and a little bit cooled and a little bit reduced down as well. So that's it for the moment. We'll bring it up to temperature, and then just a low to heat, just to gently cook it. Add the tomatoes that I'm making the sauce out of. The onions, what I did do is I always put in the onion roots as well. So I cut all the nasty bits off from the onion and the skin, but any kind of root like that that's at the bottom of the onion that holds it all together, I always put that into the sauce. It's still onion, it's just I don't know why you would throw it away. It's just it's wasteful, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Certainly if you're going to put it in a sauce, I suppose people don't want to put things in like that because they think it'd ruin the look of something, or they're scared of putting the root in, but I always do because I think it's wasteful not to. But anyway, that's that. Tomatoes have cooked down, and I've given them a little bit of puree with the hand blender. Put some pepper in, so we'll go in with the onions and the chorizo or meat of your choice first. We'll give it a stir around, and then we'll decide how much of the chickpeas we want to add. I think we're going to add all of them. I don't want, yeah, we'll add all of them. What did I say there was going to be? It was 750 grams. So there's plenty of chickpeas. And we'll probably need a little bit of the chickpea water just to make it a little bit more looser. Probably could have got away with less chickpeas, but just going to mean there's plenty. So we'll put some chickpea water in. And then what I'm going to do is going to bring it back up to temperature, because everything I put in was cold. And what that will do is it'll allow all the flavours to mingle together. So the chickpeas will start taking on the flavour of the tomatoes and the meat and the onions, and vice versa. So the tomato sauce will take on the flavour of the more of the onions and the meat. That looks about right, is that? So that's all right. So lid on. We don't want to reduce it anymore. We just want to bring it up to temperature and get the flavours to mix in a little bit. So that's fine. Turn it down just a little bit, just start to bubble slightly. That's fine. So lid on. 15-20 minutes. Get it up to temperature, and then we'll crack the eggs in, and then that'll be the next stage. But there's going to be plenty there. So imagine. Oh, I always. When I think about portions, I always divide things in the pan. So you kind of think that there would be, there's going to be 4 good portions there. You kind of imagine that's divided into 4. So it's going to be 4 good portions there. So it'll be like an egg there, an egg there, an egg there, an egg there. I'm going to have some of this for my breakfast tomorrow. So I'm not going to put an egg in. I'm not going to put 4 eggs in. I'm going to put another egg in, or another couple of eggs in tomorrow when I have it for my breakfast. So we'll just do a couple of eggs once it's cooked to temperature, but you get the basic idea. So lid on, turn down a little bit because we don't want anything to go wrong with it. Oh, and I better taste it. I put some pepper in, but I never tested the salt. Needs a little bit of salt. Actually, won't. We'll wait until the chorizo has given up a bit of its flavour. So we'll taste it again just before we put the eggs in. So I did do a quick calculation. I used tins of tomatoes, so it came out at £2.12 for everything, which works out 53p a portion. That includes the egg, so that's really good. If I'd used passata, which is 500 grams of passata instead of the 2 tins of tomatoes, it would have worked out even cheaper. So it would have been £1.89 for everything, and that works out at, I don't know. Oh, that's not the right calculation, is it? No, hang on. So, do my calculator, because I can't do that. I should be able to do it in my head, but I'm not feeling that way inclined. 1.89 divided by 4 equals. So that works out like 47p a portion, which is even cheaper, even better. So there we go. That's going to be cheap. So get up to temperature. I can hear it bubbling, so it's going to go down a little bit more. Get up to temperature, and then we'll do the eggs. All the flavours have had time to amalgamate. Is that the right word? I'm not sure. Mix together. That's a better word. And it's all up to temperature as well. So about 15-20 minutes. So we'll give it a taste. Lovely. Just needs a tad of salt, so we'll give that a mix in, and as it's rock salt, it'll take a little time to melt, so that's fine. So I'm going to give some of this to my mum, and I'm going to save some for breakfast tomorrow. So I'm just going to cook a couple of eggs in it, so it gives you the idea of what you need to do. But I'm sure I covered this already, I would think. So we divide into 4, and then that's 4 portions. What we need to do is make a little indentation each of the quarters, and that's where we're going to crack our egg. So one in there, one in there. So one there. Just need to make an indentation so the egg sits in there. And then what we're going to do is going to put the lid back on, and then what that'll do is it'll cook the eggs from the bottom. I've seen some recipes where people just kind of cook it at this stage. I've always found that the eggs at this stage, I always found that you need to put a lid on it, and then the eggs slightly steam in the juice as well. Some people don't. Some people just leave it like that and cook the eggs like that. What's going to happen there is the yolks are going to be overly cooked by the time the white round here is not cooked. By the time the white there is cooked, the yolk's going to be overcooked. And I don't like what you class as like snotty bits on the eggs. It's better just to put a cover on them. So I also will add that I used chorizo, because that's what I had and that's what I wanted to use up. But it's one of those dishes where you can use up anything that you've got. So if you've got a bit of leftover lamb would work really well. If you've got lamb's expensive, but it's just an example. So if you've got a bit of lamb, that works well. You've got some gammon, or you've got some sliced ham. They don't work really well. And the same with sausages as well. Either if you've got some leftover cooked sausages, they work well. But also if you wanted to use like sausage meat as well. So if you had some, say maybe 2 sausages or 3 sausages that weren't cooked, not really enough for a meal, but you could certainly take the skins off those and fry those off like you would do like mince, and that would work really well. A little bit of mince in there would work well. Anything like that would work really well, and it's just one of those dishes that's very versatile. You normally put peppers in. I didn't have peppers. Doesn't matter. I put more onions in. I'd compensate with, if I had a pepper, I'd put a pepper in and cut some of the onion out of it. Any beans that you kind of want. Doesn't have to be chickpeas. Any kind of beans work really well. Some chili in there would always work really well. If you want to put some spices in there, they'd work really well. If you want to put some herbs in, they'd all work really well. So it's one of those versatile dishes that you can, there's no set recipe. You can add anything you want. You can leave out anything you want. So you can make it vegetarian if you eat eggs, or you could just have it as a straight chickpea stew, tomatoes, chickpeas and onions and a little bit of garlic. That would work really well as well. I'd throw a stock cube in if you didn't have any meat in, just to give it a little bit of pep. So, how long I've been talking, that's not long enough to cook the eggs, but you get the idea. It's starting to cook, so we'll see. I reckon we'll put the timer on the oven. I reckon 10 minutes, and then we'll see. We'll check after 5, and then we'll probably ready in about 10 minutes on a low heat, just to gently cook things. After 5 minutes, so we'll give the pan a little bit of a shake, and you might just be able to see that the yolk and the white around the yolk is moving kind of quite freely, which means that it's still going to be a little bit runny. We'll just give it another couple of minutes, and then I think that'll be ready. In fact, actually, we'll pull it off now. It's going to carry on. The heat from the pan is going to carry on cooking that. So when we'll take some the chickpeas out, and that'll carry on cooking. So I think that'll be about perfect. So 5 minutes, 7 minutes, something like that, is about enough time to poach those. No, slightly longer, because I was talking about other stuff. So we're probably talking 10 minutes from the time you put the eggs in and putting the lid on. We're probably talking 10 minutes, but I'd certainly look at them after 5. So I think this one's going to be slightly more cooked. So probably easier to get out. Oh, it's going to split as that one. It's going to be all right. So, I mean, if you can make it with chorizo, it smells the smoky flavour of the chorizo is absolutely lovely. So, if you imagine, pull it out. That's a good sized portion. The egg should be on top, but obviously it's not. But I'm going to have 2 eggs, and there's going to be plenty for leftovers. And there's going to be plenty for my mum as well, so we'll pull the egg out on there. But I think for as part of a meal, or a lunch, or a light supper, it's going to be certainly good 4 portions there. Bulk it out with as much stuff as you want. It doesn't have to be an egg a person, it can be 2 eggs a person. As much meat as you want. So we'll kind of just dive into the egg, just to kind of show that it is nice and soft. Just ruined that, but there you go, that egg's still lovely and soft. A little bit of pepper on top for presentation. And there we go. Yeah, lovely, versatile dish. Certainly one of my favourite things. Certainly something really kind of quite special for breakfast. Treat someone to that for breakfast and they'll love you forever. In fact, serve that as a meal for someone, and they'll love you forever. And quite basic ingredients. So we're talking chickpeas, tomatoes, bit of garlic, bit of onion, bit of meat, and some egg, and it's absolutely lovely. There you go. I'm not going to try and pronounce it again because I've forgotten what it's called. I want to call it Shakshuka, but it's not. But anyway, but there we go. Easy peasy and certainly cheap.